There we go.
Aloha, Happy New Year, everyone. I'm Lila Mower, President of Kokua Council. Today's general meeting is about volunteerism. And Kokua Council's directors are volunteers. We have a long history of volunteerism. But we also have members in the Kokua Council community that are well-known volunteers. And I wanted to start this. It's a little, I'll start about 10 minutes late. We apologize for technical difficulties. But I wanted to start this with President Kennedy's saying, and which I'm paraphrasing, don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And it was that saying of his that encouraged me to become an American and to give up my Japanese citizenship. And I'd like to live true to that, and I think a lot of us do. Some of our peers at Kokua Council, well-known Larry Geller, Jim Sean, began their volunteer. Well, they didn't begin, but they participated in the Peace Corps. Here to us on our panel today, we have John McDermott, Hawaii's long-term care ombudsman, Kim Coco Iwamoto, president of the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce and director of HAPA, Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action, Kimberly Itagaki with us here in person of the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, also known as RSVP. Gary Simon is coming to us via Zoom. He's volunteer president of AARP Hawaii. Helen Wagner may be joining us. She had a family emergency. She is with the Hawaii Family Caregivers Coalition. And here in person, we have Greg Misakian of the City and County of Honolulu's Waikiki Neighborhood Board. So if I may, I'd like to start the program with John McDermott. John?
Aloha, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. The Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program has been around since 1975. We started out as a demonstration project. And then in 1978, it became a federal mandate. In 1979, it was part of Hawaii revised statute. And so we advocate for anybody who's living in a long-term care facility. So in our state, that means nursing homes, care homes, expanded care homes, foster homes, and assisted living facilities. So that's a total of 1,790 facilities and 12,942 beds. And when I started in 1998, we didn't have a volunteer program. So I was expected to go to all the neighbor islands and do all of this kind of by myself, which was really not possible. And so in 2001, we were able to get the funding to hire a full-time volunteer coordinator. And today our volunteer coordinator is Lynn Itani. So she does the classroom training part, which is about 30 hours. And then I do the on-site training, which is usually 2 visits, and it's about 4 hours each day. And once you're certified, then we have monthly meetings so that everybody from the neighbor islands hears what's happening on Oahu, that we share information, we have guest speakers. We also have people from other states, because I'm assigned to be the mentor for the Ombudsman for Puerto Rico and for Guam, so they also sometimes join us. So the monthly meetings are where people share what's going on in their facilities and make sure everybody is staying on the same page, not going rogue. And there is some documentation. It's pretty minimal, though. It's we call it DAR, describe what's the complaint. A is what is the approach that you took, and R, what was the final resolution. So as simple as possible. Rick is one of our volunteers, and so we appreciate that. And so since 2001, I think we've probably certified close to 300 volunteers, but we always need more. And the big news is that now we also have approval to hire a full-time ombudsman for Kauai, full-time for Maui, full-time for Hilo, full-time for Kona, and a second one for Oahu. So Governor Ige approved that in 2022, and the legislature very supportive, especially Senator Moriwaki and the Kapuna Caucus. So that's what we're in the process of doing right now, trying to find people who are interested in those positions. If anybody's looking for a job, let me know. So that's kind of our program in a nutshell.
Thank you very much, John. By the way, we'll be taking questions after all have presented. Kim Coco, you're next.
Hi, thank you so much. It didn't seem, thank you so much, Kokua Council. I'm so happy to be a lifetime member. And I learned a lot from John's presentation. I'm under the impression that we have 10 minutes to basically do an opening statement. Basically, my history of volunteerism began with tagging along with my mother to the Red Cross, helping them do some filing, stuffing envelopes, all of those kinds of things. And as I got older and went to college and began my activism, protesting in the streets, all of those things, that's where I started interfacing or layering in, because I actually think activists are volunteers, or they're policy changers. They're often advocating for a group of marginalized people, usually, to access more equality and equity. But also that's where I also learned about philanthropy complementing volunteerism. When you're leafletting at a protest, somebody's got to pay for those Xerox copies. So putting money in a hat was the beginning of that. And then later on, I met Doug Matsuoka actually at Volunteer Legal Services Hawaii, where I was a homeless outreach coordinator, but also then became the staff attorney or managing attorney, where I would work with and so I was staff, but I would work with volunteers, and it was my job to recruit. And also, just to share with you, after law school, I volunteered at Legal Aid. I was an intake volunteer there, meaning all the calls that came in for help, I would answer those calls and provide as much legal services as I could as a volunteer. And so when Volunteer Legal Services was hiring, or when they were hiring, I was able to reflect on my volunteer experience and then also build partnerships. And that as a volunteer has become really important in all the hats that I've worn during that time and afterwards. These relationships you meet when you're volunteering. And so at Legal Aid, the gentleman who did the training for the intake specialist became a huge resource and partner when I went over to Volunteer Legal Services Hawaii. And we were able to partner the two organizations, which had never really, they didn't really have a great relationship at the time, but hopefully it got a little bit better. And we were able to offer both of our clients a broader range of services than we had before. So again, that networking opportunity, working with attorneys, convincing them to be a part of our legal clinics that we're hosting in homeless shelters and as well as community centers across the state. And then once those attorneys got a little taste of working with our clientele and working with us as administrators, we were able to build that kind of trust. And hopefully when we had clients that needed to have full representation, we were able to call upon these volunteer attorneys to step in. So it's kind of interesting. So the key things are just showing up to do the work and then building relationships and sharing resources. These have all become huge tools in this volunteerism kind of framework that I've found myself in. And then I've also, so then I think I'm here for the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce in speaking with some other business owners about how business was being represented in the state of Hawaii and at the legislature on policies I realized we all felt that we were being misrepresented or misframed. I think people were getting the impression that business owners were only concerned with their own profit margins. And we wanted to make sure that our volunteer time was used to ensure that legislators who are making policies that impacted business or impacted our workers or impacted the community that our businesses thrive in, that that they wouldn't be pushed to the side. So that's why we wanted to get together and volunteer our time in networking, creating opportunities for like-minded businesses who believe in a triple bottom line, planet, people, and profit, so we could be economically sustainable as well. That there's a broader perspective for businesses, that we're seen as connected to the community and responsible to the people we work with and the community we work in, and to the consumers that buy products or even condos. And again, back to that, it's been about developing relationships, really maximizing our ability. Anytime you volunteer or share your time, you want to make sure that you're going to bring, well, for me, it's really important to bring, all of my toolbox in terms of those relationships and connections and in history with community organizing. And so it's been a lot of fun to work with Lila and Doug with the Kokua Council. Also, another organization that I was one of the founding funders for, and I'm currently serving as a volunteer board of directors, is the Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action. And that we do have paid quite a few paid staff. But I get to volunteer, and I love just jumping in. And as a board member, they welcome me into the trenches with them. So one of the things that we've done is the People's Congress, which we bring together different members of the communities and people, activists who are working on all different kinds of issues. And we create an opportunity for everyone to come together and talk about the change that they want to see, whether it's criminal justice, whether it's support for local family farmers, whatever people are doing. It's a clearinghouse where we can come together and make connections, and that's a highlight of volunteering. Also, I think for me too, it's I know Doug feeds a lot of people at Food Not Bombs, as well as his job allows him to feed people. But for me, as a former foster parent, providing a house and predictable meals to young people was an important part of shaping seeing what I could offer as a volunteer, and also seeing how I can tap in and develop other skill sets that actually then in turn helped me become a parent later on. Yeah, and a better auntie probably. But there's so many, I'm just so grateful that I have this opportunity to volunteer in such a nurturing place, such as Hawaii. So thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to any questions that people may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim Coco. All right, Kimberly, let's switch seats. You can sit here. I'm introducing Kimberly Itagaki of RSVP, the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program. So let me switch with Kimberly.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I am Kimberly Itagaki. I am with the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program. I am with the City and County, with the Department of Community Services under the Ellies Affairs Division. I always would like to share about our division, not about our program, because I am Ellies Affairs first. As an Elderly Affairs Division, there's two parts to us. And one part is where we have the information assistance folks, the grant management folks. They work with seniors who are seeking out services. And then on the other side, where the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, RSVP, that's where I come in and I work with seniors, anyone 55 plus, who just wants to give love back into the community. There's no money involved. And the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program has been around since 1971. And in 1972, it was brought into Honolulu County. And it was actually housed under Helping Hands. In 2010 is when it went under the city and county. Okay, just a little background of that. And so going back to the volunteers, I'm kind of, when I meet people, it's more about finding out what their interests are. And through their interests is trying to find a good home and a good place for them. So I partner with from Meals on Wheels folks to the seniors working with seniors, seniors working with students in schools, doing tutoring, working in the library, working at Satellite City Hall, DNV, the hospital. I mean, there's just such a wide range. And again, it's just depending on the interests. Okay. There's no time, just about the love. I mean, as much as there are partners, like John is one of my partners with the Ombudsman folks. So, you know, it just depends on the program, how much time that the volunteers put in. Let's see. Besides being a volunteer program, we're a family. And so once a month, we do have educational opportunities. So I try to find guest speakers once a month. And during that time, it's food and fellowship first. You know, food is always good. And it's a time where volunteers also can meet each other and they learn about what the other volunteers are doing, another way to connect them. And then, you know, just trying to find guest speakers. This past Friday, we had a young man. He started his business with a tech world, Kumutech, and he came to talk to seniors about the world of technology. So it wasn't about Word or Excel. It was just a wide range. So things like that once a month. Besides finding I guess speakers, so if any of one of you want to come and speak for our program, let me know. And also if you just want to come and talk about your program, because I mean, there's such great things going on in our community that people don't know about. So if you just want to come and do an elevator speech and join us, you're more than welcome. We do outreach events. All the seniors, they love coming out with one of the things I'm very proud of is our newsletter. This newsletter is volunteer driven, and every single article is written by the volunteers. When I first started the newsletter, it was only myself. It was too long. I put in a little ad for anybody want to join me. I had Miss May join. She's my very, very first volunteer. And, you know, for a while it was only she and I. Now we have 10 members, Rick included. He's one of the writers. 20 pages in January. Well, but I mean, it's, you know, just a lot of the articles is just the volunteers sharing, you know, it's love articles. So, you know, it's not something like statistics or things like that. And then it comes out every other month. Let's see. One last thing I'm going to mention is May is the Older Americans Month. And every county, we select an outstanding older American, male and female. Nominations is going to go out before the end of the month. This is not an RSVP thing. This is a county. So I can share the nominations. All of the nominees just have to be 65 plus and come within the year. And they have to be a resident of Honolulu. Okay, and I can share that with Rick.
Yeah.
Nomination.
So, and we actually do each county from the state. does theirs in May, and then what do you say, June 7th, I think, is our
The state
state action
celebration.
gathering. So it's male and female, each county, we fly them all and do a big parade, but she puts together one heck of a parade for the county.
So, everyone out there, you folks are all working with volunteers. If there's anyone that you want to nominate, please do so, okay? Okay, any questions?
Well, I add too, you're doing a pen pal thing, it's pretty remarkable. I wrote an article about that. It's not on my 3rd year, so the pen pal is with the 6th grade class, that Pearl
Ridge Elementary
Elementary, so. And it's just started up again, we just started that just.
started this January.
Yeah, and it's really, so you guys started that during COVID.
Yep, so this is gonna be our 4th year that we've been in the pen pal project with Ridge Elementary.
And I was really moved both by the pen pals that I pen pal with. It's pretty remarkable. But we actually met them all this year for the first time. That was powerful.
You know, we'll have questions later, but just give us your name, organization, and if there's an easy contact.
Oh, sure.
Or
So,
URL.
Kimberly Itagaki, Elderly Affairs Retired Senior Volunteer Program. I can send you folks my email address
Sure.
and then you can send it out and share it.
Sure.
But thank you everyone for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Where was Garnet before? Went to the already. Oh, no, it's not the, right now, you said something about, oh, no, John McDermott and I, but we since. Well, I heard we gave a date that, you said 1971, program started. Oh, national, okay, I mean that since. Oh.
Yeah, it's been around a long time.
Thank you. We'll take questions after we have more presenters. Next, we have Gary Simon, joining us by Zoom.
Thank you, Lila and fellow board members. I'm Gary Simon. I'm currently the volunteer state president for AARP Hawaii, and our motto is to serve and not to be served. But about me, like Kim Coco, the genesis of my volunteerism was through my parents. My parents raised 5 sons. I'm the 4th of the 5 boys. And so my mom was team mom for everything, just chicken every weekend for different teams. And my father, a guilty Roman Catholic, is very active in the church. For those of you who are Catholic, he often did the collections and counted the collections, the monetary offerings, oftentimes brought the host, the bread and the wine, down the aisle to the priest. He was also a volunteer guardian ad litem for the judiciary, and in his later years, he was a hospice volunteer. So it was the norm for my parents and for the boys to be engaged in the community. I'm going to take a step back. My father was in the Air Force, and we were stationed in Puerto Rico, and so we had a well-off. Military has it pretty well off, not nice home, but right outside of the gate, the fence, the base boundary, was a slum, and people were living in cardboard boxes and sheet metal. And I was in 5th grade back then, and I didn't understand it, how I had it so good, and how these people were struggling, living in these little cardboard cubicles, and that stuck with me from 5th grade. My father retired from the Air Force in Hawaii, which is our home. I was born in Hawaii. Yeah, I went to UH, and I applied for the Peace Corps, and it was more a selfish thing. What had stuck with me when I was in 5th grade is I wanted to see how most of the world lives. Because most of the world is not even at middle class. They're not afloat. They're struggling throughout the day to put that one meal on the table. So I joined the Peace Corps, and I put a preference down for North Africa because I thought it cooler weather. But I didn't get it. I got West Africa. And my goal again was to see how most of the people in the world live. But I was all in on my volunteer assignment, which was teaching secondary school math, physics, and chemistry. And it was astounding, and it was an eye-opener. Although they live day to day, they're very happy people. There's a lot of happiness in their simplicity. Yes, there are struggles, but they're not burdened by a lot of the modern madness. So it was although I went for selfish reasons, my 2 years of volunteerism in Africa, I learned a lot about myself. I mean, my reason for being, and I could always look back on my parents, that they always gave back to the community. When my 2 years were up in West Africa, I went to Washington thinking I'd continue service in the Peace Corps. I founded some other job before the federal government hiring is really slow. I found some other jobs in the interim, but one of my fellow Peace Corps volunteers who was in the same country as me asked me if I would volunteer at a Latino family center that helped Latin American immigrants from Central and South America get into the economy. Start with the basics, get them to become construction laborers or frontline restaurants. Just get them into entry-level jobs. And in those days, a lot of the South Americans and Central Americans, they were coming out of Guatemala and Honduras. And so I did that. I volunteered at that Latino Family Center for 2 years. And then I returned to Hawaii, looked for a job, got a job at St. Francis Hospice. And then my neighbor across the street found out that I was working with hospice, and most of our patients are elderly. So he said, "Why don't you apply for the Policy Advisory Board for Elder Affairs Board, PABIA?" And I said, "Oh, sure." Just to honor my neighbor, I applied, and sure enough, I was nominated and confirmed by the Senate. But from that point, when I got on to PABIA, there was a tremendous amount of cross-pollination with aging advocates. I became engaged with the Hawaii Family Caregiver Coalition, Kokua Council. I became a board member of the Pololo Chinese Home. And I also became engaged with the disabled via our beloved Francine Y, who was the head of the Disability and Communication Access Board. And Francine is an icon in the disability world because she wrote many of the laws that engage it and brought the disabled into our community lives. So that's it. Now, why do I do what I do? It's more about our community. I want to be one of those, like all of us in the room. I want to be part of the solution. And I know it's not all roses, but I don't want to be the complainer out there. I want to be active in the solution. I want to be active in building a cohesive, a healthy community. So it's about all of us. But in the end, there are so many collateral benefits for me personally. I'm happy. I'm socially engaged with so many people. I've learned over and over again that there is more than one right way. There are often 4, 5, 6 right ways to approach a problem, and sometimes you can use all of those methods. You can use more than one way to get to the solution. You don't have to just use one way. And I often learn how arrogant I can be. During the COVID pandemic, when we were shut down, Jackie Boland said we should have cooking classes, and I thought, who would attend a cooking class? Cable TV is full of cooking classes. Yeah, right. That was one of our biggest virtual community engagements. We would get hundreds of people on it, and that. I mean, what I'm trying to depict here is, yeah, you know it all, right, Gary? You keep an open mind, because your view may not necessarily be right or the only view. And then like Barbara's granddad or aunt says, we're here to serve and not to be served. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. That was, that was fun to hear, Gary. Helen Wagner is our next speaker, but I think she's still on the road at this time. Oh, she is. Helen?
Please unmute, Helen.
Hang
Will
on.
you please unmute yourself, or I know Doug is trying to unmute you at this time.
You unmute?
Okay,
There you go.
There you are.
okay.
Helen Wagner. Oh, wait,
Ah.
turn your permission.
I'm Helen Wagner, and I want to tell you that if it weren't for volunteering, I don't know what kind of person I'd be today. This has given me an opportunity to, like some of us have shared as volunteers, instead of dividing each other, all coming together under the same principles of helping one another. I found that as a community, I sometimes refer to myself as a community liaison, because there's so many things here in this beautiful island to share. When I was a tourist and when I came here, I went to Foster Gardens, and a senior came up to me and said that he would show me around the garden, and he explained everything. And because of my cynical nature, I figured he was doing it for money. So after enjoying his narration, at the end, I offered him a tip. And he told me, no, I do this because I love my land, my Haina. And I started crying, because here in Hawaii, you have that kind of humbleness that the people with aloha share. And by getting involved in the community, just like that senior who unaware was like an angel sharing his love with the stranger. And I got involved in many different ways in how can I help, rather than an ego situation like I was in the habit of giving, but with strings attached, like what's in it for me. But when I learned that if I do it for love, and only that, I get back more than I could ever imagine. I wanted to be one of those people that came into a room that people thought, like, who's that? And I found what those people had is something I wanted. They had self-confidence. And the way to get it was by their accomplishments, not just by words, but what I was seeing them accomplish. And they say in order to have your self-esteem and self-respect, you should have things that you've accomplished, not things just for you, a title. So a lot of my volunteering, I started to choose to be that partner or that one that helped tie everything together or people together rather than apart. And, you know, Coco, I've seen you campaign and I've never heard you speak ill. It's always because you love this land. And I really, as I one time wanted to vet people rather than just assume who are these on the ballot and make random checks. When I spoke with you, you stood out because you have a sincerity about you. There are some that just, yeah, okay, and then they drop it. And I'll tell you, even working with you, Gary, because I also belong to the Hawaii Family Caregivers Coalitions, I saw you as a role model. Because in a lot of these organizations, people just come and sit there. But I remember the first time you came, you said, okay, we need a treasurer, a secretary, all the different offices we were going to be voting on. And nobody raised their hand. And you said, okay, I could do that. And you were doing all of that. And then I realized that people come together as a unit, not as individuals. And that's why I volunteered to be the secretary at that early stages. But you're a role model, and that's what we do. We just don't grab it for the title. Also, I found that we have political leaders, and one of them was and is Susie Chanoklin. She helped with the youth day and different things. She was also a good role model. Now she does Lana Kea, the senior center. Wonderful, wonderful group that they have there that we use a lot of times to go for resources to help in the community. The same with the lady that was representing RSVP. Seniors have always been a big asset in volunteering. The percentages that are seniors outweighs probably all the different age brackets for volunteering. And Susan Chanoklin revitalized RSVP. I remember when I'd do the food bank, I'd go there with the intentions of just passing out food. But then, you know, there's always leftovers. And I wouldn't go there with that intent. But it was so, I mean, just simple things like that. When we reached out, one girlfriend, it was Thanksgiving and she was widowed and alone. And she said, rather than commit suicide, she volunteered to help at a food bank. And she said, you know, Helen, I went there to give my time rather than feel sorry for myself. And she said, I was never more rewarded in all my life by feeding those meals, but also at these gatherings, there was music, there was refreshments, there was all the friendships that you make outweigh all the things that we ever anticipate. I have found that I've come to respect the community of volunteerism in any which way that I could help, but also as seniors were mentors. And we have to draft the younger generation into this. Years ago, when I was 21, I was asked by the governor of Jamaica if I would start a Girl Scout troop. And that was solely because I had been a Girl Scout for a compound of polio victims, of girls that had polio, because they had an epidemic there. And I thought, sure, I was a Girl Scout, I could do that. And so that started by me going, just having the willingness to say yes. The rewards outnumber. It puts you in an arena of respect that people say, oh, I know you from Food Bank, or I know you from Al-Anon, different things that I want to give back. And that's what it is. It's giving back to the community. They say healthy families. And when you were saying about the baseball and all of that kind of stuff, that's where it starts. Our parents that got us involved. And we as parents get our children involved. And they get their children. So it starts with the families. And the families build healthy communities and cities and states. And that's what we've got to remember. All reach out. If you don't know, then call anyone on this board and ask, where can I help out? There's people, go to your churches. They have a lot of outreach there from the churches. And I'll tell you, if you're widowed, if you're a senior living alone, you're never alone. All you have to do is be willing to reach out and help. And you'll have a family. You've seen them, church families, families from organizations you belong to that help you get through those times when you can't give, and it comes back and rewards you. So thank you for being here, but I want to say that, like the family caregivers, you can help out in so many different ways. There's helping, just showing up at their door. And, Doug, you do the food bank. And the people that I know, that they say, they come in and they check on me to see if I'm okay, because sometimes those people are the only ones they see all throughout the day. So again, thank you for your services, the training that these groups do. It isn't like you just go out. They train you, they build you up, and you go out and you serve a purpose. And that's why we come here and do these things. And COVID set us back a bit, but people are not fearing anymore. They're coming out and being a part of the world and being involved. Right now, we're getting ready for the presidential caucus that's going to be held March 12th. We're going to be doing it at King's School in the Windward area. If anybody's interested, please call me. I'm listed in the phone book under Jeff Wagner, or any of us that you know. Let us know and we'll get you involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very heartwarming. All right, our next speaker.
Oh.
Aloha. My name is Greg Misakian, and I serve on the board of directors here at Kokua Council. And I just have to say, after listening to everyone speak today, it's extremely inspirational to me. It's the reason when I met Lila Mower or spoke to her for the first time, her words were inspirational to me, when she asked me to join the Kokua Council. And what I did last night is I just took some time to prepare just a short story. So mine is probably going to be the shortest, I think. And I'm just going to read to you what I put down in words last night. In the spring of 2022, a kapuna in my building called me and told me about an article he had read in the Honolulu Star Advertiser. He and his wife had been sharing concerns with me for many months about our condominium association. I took a walk and bought the paper and read the commentary written by Lila Mower, who I had never met or spoken with. After reading what she wrote, I was very compelled to reach out to her and spend time looking for her contact info online. I found a phone call. What happened next began a journey that was set in motion with a simple yet profound action. Lila answered her phone and said hello, and then took the time to speak with me about the concerns I and our kapuna shared. She was volunteering her time to not just write an important commentary with the intent to help people, but to take my call and the calls of many others. One call from me led to her taking further calls. So there were a few more. And one day she asked me if I was interested to be on the Kokua Council. I said to her, if you think I can help and contribute, I would be very happy to. I have always been elder focused, so it was something I was very interested in. In January of 2023, I attended a Waikiki neighborhood board meeting, which I did from time to time. There was an open seat on the board, and someone who I was with said to me, you should volunteer to serve. I only had a moment to think about it, but I stood up and offered my service and was elected by the board to the open seat. Participating in further neighborhood board meetings made me really aware of how many people needed our help to get their concerns elevated to a place where solutions could happen. In July of 2023, after I was elected to a new 2-year term by the residents of Waikiki, I was nominated by some of my fellow board members to be the Subdistrict 2 Vice Chair. I have embraced that role to do my best to serve the residents of Waikiki and to help them get their voices heard by not just the neighborhood board, but by City Council, the Mayor's Office, our legislators, and others. I have and will continue to place things on the agenda that are important to the residents of Waikiki. I also serve on my Condominium Association's Board of Directors, and I'm doing my best there to help the association and the owners. What I've learned is that serving on these boards is very tough and a lot of work, but I choose to put the effort in because I truly enjoy helping other people. What I also learned is that when you follow a path that is meant for you, that others will guide you along the direction. My fellow Kokua Council directors have taught me a lot, and through the mentorship of Lila Mower and others, I believe I am going in the right direction. I hope that everyone who has listened to the speakers today will also find a volunteer path that is meaningful to both yourselves and the people you help. And as I started saying, I am truly inspired today by the people that have spoken, especially our last board member, Ms. Helen Wagner. And I'm very honored to be sitting at this table here and being able to read a few words that I wrote last night when I was trying to come up with what I'd like to say today. I've been thinking about it for a while. So I do appreciate this opportunity, and I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to open the floor to questions. And if the people on Zoom, if you would like to ask a question and make a comment, if you could please use the raise hand icon, that would really help. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm gonna see if I can get this camera. There we go. Yeah, I'm on my own camera. I have a question for everyone that spoke, everyone here really. And it's that, you know, we're here from organizations that really depend on volunteers. We couldn't exist without volunteers. So my question is kind of in 3 parts. What makes a volunteer? What makes a person a volunteer? And how do you find them? And how do we make more of them? I don't know if there's such a thing, but I don't know who wants to go first.
Say a volunteer could be anybody out there in the audience, anybody. and volunteer. And I think in some ways, a lot of us do volunteer in different ways all the time, but as we, definitely as this group, many of us have retired or we're a little bit older, and we wanted to give back to the community. So I'll tell you a little story. My wife actually retired right at the beginning of COVID. And about 3 months into it, I came home and she was falling apart. Newspaper was thrown all over the place, and she was like, I can't do this anymore. I have to have something to do. And I had just come from a Zoom, and some of us in the room were on. Somebody from Salvation Army had said they needed volunteers during COVID to help keep people from being evicted. And so I said they had that position. She actually applied for that, and she volunteered there to the point that they actually hired her part-time. And she's the happiest person in the world because she's volunteering. We have a huge increase in loneliness going on out there right now. And I always say, for the most part, you're only lonely if you want to be lonely. So there's always something we could be doing. Some folks don't have the capacity to do a lot of stuff. Don't have to. I mentioned this pen pal thing. That's pretty easy to do even from your own place. You don't even have to go out anymore. So volunteer can be anywhere. How do we find them? It's things like this, putting the word out that we have these programs. I know Kimberly's very busy going to a lot of the fairs. We're going to do more fairs, I think, this year than we did before COVID. Getting the word out to people that volunteerism is out there. I was just telling Kimberly, I'm working on an article on happiness and volunteerism. I've been putting a lot of time into it because I really, it's deep in my heart. And I volunteer all over the place. I didn't speak today because some of these have already been presented. But anybody out there could be a volunteer. And frankly, right now, we need more volunteers than ever. So some of the volunteers have fallen off, I have to say. And so just put a little bit of an alert out there. This is a great time to volunteer because we really need the help. Part of that is our demographic are the fastest growing population in America, and we need the most help of all. And we have the most to offer. So that's my 2 cents. Somebody else?
Anyone else?
I can share that when from my hat at Volunteer Legal Services Hawaii, it was in that position that I did the most amount of volunteer recruitment. And so the volunteers we used were all attorneys. And I would do a deep dive into random attorneys and find out what kind of law they practice. And I gave them statistics about the fact that we had X amount of calls from low-income individuals who needed an attorney who knew about landlord-tenant laws so basically I would make sure that this attorney, my targeted volunteer, would know very precisely and clearly that we needed them, that they had something to offer that was very concrete and specific. We weren't going to waste their time. We were coming with very specific needs. And that was, I felt, helpful for this particular set of volunteer people to know that that there were specific needs that they could fulfill. Because that's the worst part, right? When you go somewhere and you're like, oh, I don't know if I fit right, and I don't know if I'll be useful, will I be sitting around, so making sure that we're actually using the volunteers, that was really helpful. And then them seeing how well we managed the operation, it was easier for them to help recruit other volunteers.
Kim Coco, I have a question for you. Speaking of volunteers, if I deal with a different group of attorneys, perhaps on the other end of the spectrum that you dealt with, people not necessarily into volunteerism. I've heard that, I don't know if it's per attorney or legal firms, that there is some kind of, is it a requirement that they provide some pro bono time every year or every so often?
Yes, that's correct. There is a mechanism when you renew your Hawaii State Bar Association membership, whether you're active or inactive status. They do require that you report how many hours of pro bono time that you shared with the community. So there is that asking, I don't know, and the reporting of it is required, I believe, but I don't know exactly if you're going to have your license taken away because you didn't do enough hours. I don't think it's like that.
So there's no requirement for performing for pro bono services. I think there is something they call an aspirational goal of X number of hours. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, they set out an aspirational goal, and then they require you to report how many hours you feel you've contributed. And then that's the extent. So pro bono service is, as a profession of attorneys, it is highly encouraged and formally encouraged, but not formally required.
Back, when I was at Volunteer Legal Services and I left, I guess, in 2005, so it was a while ago, different states had all kinds of different requirements. And in fact, I was talking to a similar group in San Francisco, and they had far less problems recruiting volunteers than we did in Honolulu. So I think, the Bar Association and the laws actually have an effect on volunteerism, at least among attorneys. Yeah. Just wanted to put that in there.
Thank you. I don't know, does anybody else have any questions? I have one for you, Kimberly. You were talking about your newsletter, and Kokua Council would like to start releasing a newsletter, and we've been discussing it for some time now. Do you distribute yours via email? And then we know how to reach you.
Helen's got it.
Okay. Go ahead, Helen.
Actually, this was still directed to Kim before my hand was noticed. But you're talking about pro bono. I've always taken it as a compliment to the lawyers that have helped the one in need, because that's usually why they're stepping forward. But also, I have seen some arrogant lawyers because of the power that they carry here in Hawaii. That right in front of me, two prominent people are talking to lawyers, and one says how they're going to settle and all, and they go, well, what do we care? That they could take it to the Supreme Court and we still get paid one way or the other. And they start laughing and they say, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And I didn't think it was funny. But right now, there, like I said, there's good and there's bad, so I don't want to cast out the wrong. But we've had powerful people say, report them. And it isn't that easy here in Hawaii. And that's probably one of the things I admired about your campaign, is that you have courage to change what you can by the people's voice. And we support you. And we don't all live in a fancy yes world. These are realities that we've got to be looking at, especially with the temperature of Hawaii being what it is right now. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Wagner. Thank you so much for your very generous and kind words. I wanted to share, though, that the attorneys, the laws actually that we have in place, and I think we could see them even within the condo laws, they are situated to create adversarial kind of dynamics where, yes, it's true, the attorneys or the professionals, whether they're attorneys or professional community association managers or, any professional being hired to do this kind of work, yes, everyone's making money off of this situation, and it is unfortunate. But we really have to change laws. And I think one of the things that the Kokua Council is going for is an ombudsperson, right? And the ombudsman office would be there to hopefully tamper down the conflict so there wouldn't be so much need for attorneys to battle it out. So in fact that the ombudsman can say, well, actually this is a technical issue, and one party, the law says very clearly you need to do this, you could just do it, and hopefully that would be a solution that would remove the over reliance on attorneys. That said, there have been a lot of amazing people and organizations in the community that have pursued legal recourse pro se, means on their own behalf. Life of the Land, I don't know if you know Henry Curtis and Kat Brady, but they have done a lot pro se, meaning they're not attorneys. Sometimes they do use attorneys, but many of their most important cases, and actually even I know Lalani Teal did one about, she represented herself pro se as well, and got some important both all of those individuals have gotten really important decisions handed down from the court regarding liberties and civil liberties, as well as environmental protections. So yes, there is the laws, of course, and especially when you think about how many attorneys donate to lawmakers to kind of keep them working. So we have to be mindful of that.
Thank you.
And I would just like to mention, while we're talking about attorneys, to give some credit to a pro bono attorney that helps Kokua Council, and that's Lance Collins, and his attorney too, Bianca Isaki, who has both a JD and a PhD, and could be making massive dollars, that actually works for the benefit of people.
I want to jump in on this conversation because actually a lot of times people who are in nursing homes, if they're on Medicaid, their personal needs allowance is $50 a month. That's it. And we had a case where somebody was being unfairly discharged and could not afford an attorney. And I called up University of Hawaii Elder Law Program, and they gave me the names of a couple of attorneys who might be willing to represent this person pro bono, because $50 a month is not going to pay for an attorney. And we were very grateful that we had Rafael del Castillo come to our rescue. And out of his own pocket, he paid to fly to the neighbor island to meet with this resident. It went on for a couple of days. He had to stay at a hotel. He picked up the tab for all of that. And we were able to prevent somebody from being discharged unfairly and in a very unsafe place. And so one bill that we talked to the Kapuna Caucus, it's not going to be introduced this session, but if a pro bono attorney represents somebody in a long-term care facility and they win the case, we would like a law passed that says that that nursing home has to pay that pro bono attorney whatever his or her fees would have normally been, because we're hoping that that would be kind of an incentive to don't go that route. The nursing homes, they can afford pretty expensive attorneys, and these are people who know nursing home regulations. I have to find somebody who, out of the kindness of his heart, probably doesn't know anything about nursing home regulations. So already he's going to have to invest quite a bit of time to do the research and gets nothing at the end except satisfaction that you came to the rescue of somebody who was really, really desperate. So anyway, because we feel that so much of the focus this session is going to be on Lahaina, we felt that this is not the right time to bring this up. But we're hoping maybe next session, again, if the pro bono attorney wins the case, then he or she should be compensated so that the nursing home has to pay not only their attorney, but the resident's attorney as well.
I like that.
And John, is that limited to cases regarding nursing home, care homes, hospitals?
Well, this it's in draft form, and so we are entertaining any other suggestions that people might have.
And who's working on that draft?
Senator Moriwaki. Yeah, actually, it's already written, but we were asked if we could help with kind of some of the preamble to that, and our suggestion was that it be held this session, and we work on it next session. So there's still, you know, a whole year to work on this.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments that you would like to make?
And I point out that this recording will be up on YouTube too, so that you can, you know, cut out your portion and distribute that. Anything else? Anyone else? No?
Can I say, I'm gonna thank
Helen.
for actually coming up with this idea, volunteerism. And I want to thank Senator Lila's point as well, but I want to thank everyone who's at it. It's powerful. I hope it's helpful for anybody now if you're seeing this. I hope it is something you have to consider. Or you can do a lot of that if you want to. Helen, you got your hand up?
Yeah. Okay, this is for RSVP. Because of the COVID, like I said, a lot of them shied away and got staying inside and got comfortable. What are you as RSVP doing to generate and support the volunteer community? Because your people before you, when I would ask them this, they'd say, we're taking surveys. And as they pass the title down to the next person, and you ask that next person, what are you doing? They say, we're taking surveys. Then when asking what did the survey say, they all say the same. But before you know it, then they're closing up shop and they're doing something else. What is RSVP doing? It used to be that anywhere we went, you signed a special sheet for if you were volunteering with and belonged to RSVP, and RSVP accumulated those points and had the luncheon. But other than that, what is and what are you doing?
With RSVP, I came on board during COVID. And the position was vacant for quite a while. Jumping in and seeing, you know, going through the files and then also reaching out to our community partners. There was only about 50 active volunteers at that time. And, you know, during the COVID period, it was scary. You know, when I talked to the volunteers, a lot of them didn't want to come out, right? And also there were community partners that they didn't want to have anyone 60 years and older in person. So that was another thing that was a challenge for the volunteers. You know, and it was a slow process. But then I really feel that not everyone here agrees is building relationships, and in time building those relationships, not only with community partners, but then myself with volunteers and volunteers with volunteers. You know, we just moving on strong and we keep on growing. And I mean, with COVID, I had to create, you know, a form that is a pandemic acknowledgement so that the to protect the volunteers so that they know that they have rights in the time of COVID, that it's not gonna be that they're gonna be forced to go in person. They have the right to deny that they're not comfortable, but also to let them know that where they do volunteer, that out of respect, we do follow the procedures of the partners. So I hope that answers your question. We still do have volunteers who are still hungry, and that's one of the reasons why we started the pen pal project. With the pen pal project, this is something that the seniors, the volunteers could do at home. It wasn't in person. They just would email me, and not everyone is good with doing Word documents, PDF documents, so they could just email me the letter in the email, which I would create the document. So that was one of the projects that started COVID. Another one is a partnership with the Daniel Kiakaka Family Foundation. We try to figure out how we can do something that is still virtual and bring people in. So just being creative, and just a lot of it is listening to the voices out in the community, not only from the volunteers, but the volunteers talking to me about what their friends had to say or their family had to say. And it doesn't have to just necessarily be about RSVP, right? It's about us together as a family, a community, and just moving forward with that.
In December, you had, so I'm on RSVP, as Kimberly mentioned, and doing stuff with Kimberly is always gratifying. And their RSVP group, just like our Kokua Council, it's a fandom. I mean, it really is a fandom feel. People are very respectful. But you've had, at the end of the year, you had the appreciated gathering right here at home on G. We had resource room in this room, we had lunch in this room. In the annex, we actually had classes, but I was shocked at Santa Claus, that was my first appearance with the riot. And how many people did you have? How many did we have come to that? We were packed.
Well, there was 80 that signed up,
Yeah.
but there is actually 50 that came in person.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that, Helen, because the RSVP, we very much have the in-person. It's how many came to Zippy to get story?
That one, there's 9.
Yeah. So it really varies depending on what we're doing. And she's very accommodating in the RSVP program, and everything we do is very accommodating as well. So I think it's pretty cool. I mean, you can, as a volunteer, if you wanted to just do something for an activity, I guarantee RSVP would have something that would fit what you want to do, number of hours, the type of commitment. I mean, you have Queens wanted to have some help, beers or things like that. Just a whole range of things you could do. Well, Helen, you mentioned the foster gardens. They were looking for someone to do just what that person did with you. Someone to work in the information booth as a volunteer. Just really cool stuff.
Yeah. So right now with RSVP majority, even if I say 55, I would say 55 we're all still working. And so majority are between the age range of 70 and 87 is the range, and going strong.
Yeah.
Going strong.
I think I'm the youngest one there, actually.
And then, with the recruitment, the strongest recruiters are the volunteers. The volunteers talking to their friends, their family, and then bringing them into the program.
The only thing that Kimberly started is, I'm with Doug and I are with Hawaii Meals on Wheels. We didn't have them come because they came in November. But you're doing a once a month, you're taking a volunteer with you and delivering meals.
We did drive out.
Yeah, and so that's introduce them to doing that, and then if they want to, they can volunteer with Hawaii Meals on Wheels. So Helen, back to your question about how to find volunteers. That's another thing that Kimberly actually offers, is introducing to other volunteer programs, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Can
We
I
also helped our program because during COVID, when volunteers, her volunteers were a little reluctant to visit, and a lot of our care homes and foster homes would not allow anybody to come in and visit, not even family members. And we had 1 or 2 residents who were very lonely. They had no family, never married, now up there in age, and all of their friends have died. And Kimberly was able to find a volunteer to do friendly phone calls on a weekly basis And this has been going on now for over a year. And that person really is this resident's lifeline, because the staff, they're busy. And I don't want to hear your whole story because I got to cook dinner and make the beds and clean the bathroom and all those kinds of things. So this guy was just driving people crazy, and he had been in several other homes. And because Kimberly was able to find just the right match, he is now very happy where he is, and he feels that he has somebody who cares and is paying attention to him. So we really appreciate that she was very flexible in taking our suggestions and finding somebody.
Another program that you actually, I think you just jumped on board with, the Mediation Center Pacific. We're doing, I'm actually signed up to volunteer, so it's doing a Kupuna Pono program, and then also doing mediation. So families that are having a hard time talking to their Kupuna about what the future is, they're to Pacific Center, or we can actually do it online as well and help them walk through that process. So that's something to RSVP also.
This Thursday, I have to find this appointment.
Perfect.
All right, Kim Coco, you're
Yeah,
up.
thank you. I just wanted to respond to a side conversation I think Lila had regarding the newsletter that Kokua Council is thinking about putting together. And I think you asked if RSVP sends it out, theirs out through email or through the mail. I just want to share that, and I'm sure all of the Meals on Wheels people can attest to this as well. There's so many people who do not have computers, or they don't have that access to technology, who are literally being left behind. The mailers I send into my district that provide phone numbers to resources where actual human beings answer the phone. I get so many calls saying how grateful people are that I mailed them this mailer with these resources, because they say they're watching TV and somebody gives them an email address or an organization's website, and they're like, we don't have that, and how do we find these organizations, these resources? And so a lot of them have expressed a lot of appreciation for receiving mailed information. Because even when I go door knocking, I talk with a lot of people, and I know there's no computer in that household, so just something to think about. Maybe I don't know if you allow this, if Meals on Wheels allows this, but can you slip the newsletter in with a meal? I mean, I don't know what kind of cross-pollination.
We can do that actually, and we've done things like Kimberly's had cards made that we've slipped in with meals for special events, and we've done that in Rotary as well. So we certainly can do that.
Kim, this is Greg. I just want to thank you for saying that, because we've discussed that a number of times in our Kokua Council meetings, and I've advocated strongly for a mailing, and we've gone back and forth because of the cost. So thank you for saying that, because I think that's also very important. I had suggested also providing the newsletters to various assisted living centers and Kupuna centers, and wherever we could post them. If it's a 2-page newsletter, you could have the front and back posted, and just partnering with all of these places where we live in groups, and see if they'll post them in their bulletin boards and make them aware of it. So thank you for saying that. Appreciate it.
Gary has his hand up. Gary?
Thank you. Every once in a while, you might hear my dog. He's screaming. It's lunchtime. But getting back to Doug's question, in terms of a long pipeline, we won't see the results for decades. But when I was with St. Francis Hospice, we would recruit high school students to volunteer. Of course, they would go on to college and their own careers, but at least we would do the gene modification while they were impressionable, while they were in high school. I don't have an answer for bringing more volunteers in or cultivating those who have not volunteered, but oftentimes, like us in the either virtually or at Hongwanji. If you need manpower or brain power, ask another volunteer. They will expand their day, and they will buy a larger battery. They will go from a AAA to a D to a car battery to a solar powered battery. Volunteers, by definition, they like to help, and they will make time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that was wonderful of you, Gary, to summarize
Yep.
what the session was about. This was a very interesting, educational, and overall, extremely inspirational 90 minutes. Thank you, everyone, for all your efforts, what you give to our community, what you make this place a home for aloha. Thank you very much. We will see you next month, February. What was our program in February? Oh,
Well, I'll spill the beans. So we're actually waiting for the governor to get back to his office. The governor's eager to come. His office needs to schedule it. So we're waiting to hear from the office. And if the office doesn't schedule it, then she's already mentioned here a couple of times, soon as John open is free to probably help out if her schedule stays open on that day.
so please join us in February. And to our panelists, thank you very much for joining in and inspiring us. Thank you all. See you next month. Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you.
February 26th.